My name is Margaret, and I am 68 years old. For the past 40 years, I have worked as a nurse in a small hospital on the outskirts of the city. The job was demanding, but I never once complained, because there was only one reason that kept me going: my family. I have a daughter, Anna. Since she was a little girl, Anna has been my greatest pride. She was bright, gentle, and always dreamed of becoming a teacher one day. I devoted my entire life to raising her, and when she finally grew up, I cast aside all my exhaustion just to see her in a wedding dress, walking into her new life with joy. Anna married Tom, a young man who was intelligent and ambitious. Yet in his eyes, I always sensed something cold. I didn't want my daughter to suffer, so I smiled, accepted him, and welcomed him with open arms. Now I live with Anna, Tom, and my little granddaughter Lily, who is only 6 years old. Each day, caring for Lily, walking her to school, and hearing her innocent laughter is the only thing that warms this aging heart of mine. But not everyone in this house values my presence. Tom, my son-in-law, seems to see me as nothing more than a burden. He often speaks with irritation, sometimes making veiled remarks that I am dependent, that I am living off them. And then came the day I will never forget. At the dinner table, with my daughter and granddaughter sitting right there, Tom turned to me, looked straight into my eyes, and said, "Mother, we can't keep supporting you forever. You're becoming a burden to this family." The room fell silent. Anna lowered her head, unable to defend me. As for me, I simply sat there, staring into the eyes of the man who had stolen the peace from my home. But there was one thing Tom never knew: the house he lived in, the bed he slept on, and the very walls he leaned against. All of them were in my name. I still remember so clearly the day I signed the papers to buy this house. More than 30 years ago, after my husband passed away from a sudden illness, I was left all alone. I worked endlessly, taking night shifts at the hospital, saving every single penny. Other people bought houses as investments, but I bought this one with only one dream in mind: that my daughter would grow up in a safe, warm place filled with love. I can still see it now. Anna was only 12 years old. She ran around the new house, touching every door, sitting down on the wooden floor and giggling. "Mom, our house is so beautiful, isn't it?" That question felt like medicine to my tired soul after so many exhausting months. This house has never been just four walls. It holds all our memories. The nights we shared one bowl of noodles for dinner, the sleepless nights I stayed by her side when she was sick, and the sound of her laughter echoing through the backyard the first time she learned to ride a bicycle. Then Anna grew up, beautiful, ambitious, full of dreams. She met Tom at a university seminar. The day she brought him home to introduce to me, I smiled, cooked a delicious dinner, and welcomed him warmly. I didn't want my daughter to think her mother was hard to please. But that day, I noticed something in Tom's eyes when he stepped into the house. He glanced at every piece of furniture, every painting on the wall, as if he were calculating the value of the home, without ever stopping to notice the family photographs on the shelves. A wave of uneasiness passed through me, but I brushed it aside. All I wanted was for my daughter to be happy. On Anna's wedding day, I stood silently in the church, my eyes blurred with tears. My daughter had found her safe harbor, or at least that's what I believed. In the first few years after their marriage, they seemed happy. Anna and Tom had Lily, the granddaughter I love with all my heart. Every morning, I woke up early to prepare breakfast for the whole family, then walked Lily to preschool. I loved holding that tiny hand, listening to her innocent stories along the way. But as time went by, Tom's true self began to show. He no longer pretended to be gentle around me. Whenever I offered small suggestions about raising Lily, he would frown, sometimes even snapping, "You should let us handle it. This isn't your time anymore." I swallowed the pain, for Anna's sake, for Lily's sake. But those words felt like knives cutting into my heart. From a woman who once carried an entire family on her shoulders, I had suddenly become a burden, a freeloader, inside the very house I bought with my own blood, sweat, and tears. Anna, my daughter, who should have stood up for me, chose silence instead. I know she loves Tom and doesn't want conflict, but her silence hurts me more than 1,000 harsh words ever could. Slowly, I began to realize the love I poured into this family was no longer cherished. To them, it had become an obligation, and in Tom's eyes, I was nothing more than an obstacle, standing in the way of his ambitions. Everything began to make sense one rainy afternoon. I was sitting in the living room, mending Lily's old coat, when I overheard Tom speaking softly to Anna in the kitchen. His voice was no longer restrained. "I can't stand having your mother hanging around this house anymore. This place should belong to us, not her." My heart tightened. I froze in place, the needle slipping from my fingers and falling to the floor. Those weren't just disrespectful words. It was the naked truth. Tom wanted to get rid of me. From that day on, the atmosphere in the house changed completely. Tom no longer bothered to hide his contempt. He showed it at every meal, tapping his spoon against the table when I made the soup a little too salty, frowning whenever Lily ran over to hug me in front of him. Then the worst day came. That evening, after dinner, Tom set down his glass of wine, looked straight at me, and spoke clearly. "Margaret, it's time for you to move out. This house now belongs to Anna and me. You're old, you should find a nursing home somewhere. We'll come visit you from time to time." I turned to Anna, hoping my daughter would object, would say something, anything, to defend me. But Anna only lowered her head, her hands clasped tightly together. That silence was colder than the wind outside the window. I gave a bitter smile. "Move out, Tom. I bought this house with my own money. Every single brick, every single door carries my sweat and sacrifice." Tom let out a mocking laugh. "Don't fool yourself. The deed is in Anna's name, not yours. She's my wife now, and I'll decide the future of this house. You've spent your whole life clinging to the past. Now it's time to step aside for the new generation." Every word was like a slap in the face. My head spun. Even Anna didn't defend me. My daughter had chosen her husband's side. Quietly, I left the dinner table without another word. That night, I sat alone in my room, tears streaming down my face. I wasn't crying because they wanted me out, but because my own daughter had betrayed me. Yet through the tears, a thought suddenly lit up in my mind. No, I won't let them take everything from me. This house is my life. If they want to cast me aside, they will have to pay the price. The next day, I began to change. I no longer argued, no longer reacted to Tom's cruel remarks. I did the chores, cared for my granddaughter, smiled, stayed silent. On the surface, I looked as if I had accepted my fate. But inside, I was quietly making plans. Tom grew bolder. He started bringing friends over, discussing plans to sell the house and move into a bigger, fancier villa. I overheard bits of conversation and realized he wanted to sell everything and keep the money for himself. And the most painful part was, Anna still said nothing. She looked at me with pity in her eyes, but never once spoke against her husband. To them, I was nothing but a weak, useless old woman. But they had forgotten. I had endured loss, carried the weight of this family on my own. I knew one truth well. Sometimes silence is the sharpest weapon. I sought out an old friend, James, a retired lawyer who used to live next door. I told him everything, showed him the original papers from when I bought the house. He looked at me and smiled. "Margaret, you're far smarter than they think. There are many ways to bring the truth to light. Don't let them underestimate you." That night, I came back home. Tom and Anna were arguing about money again. I stood quietly on the stairs, listening to every word. In the shadows, I clenched my fists. A vow echoed in my heart. "Very well, Tom. If you want a battle over this house, I'll show you that I'm not as easy to defeat as you believe." Ever since that meeting with Mr. James, the lawyer, it felt as though I had awakened. I was no longer the gentle, submissive mother. I had made up my mind. If Tom wanted to turn me into an outsider, I would turn his own ambition into a trap. Everything began when Tom proposed selling the house. He excitedly told Anna that several brokers were already interested, and that if they sold it, they would have enough money to buy a bigger, more luxurious villa. I stayed quiet, listening, but inside I was smiling, because Tom had no idea that I still kept the original purchase contract from nearly 30 years ago. In that contract, there was one crucial clause. Any transaction involving the house required my written consent. From that moment, I began to play the role of a frail old woman. I deliberately let Tom believe that I was exhausted, ready to give up. I often sat by the window, sighing, pretending to consider moving into a nursing home. The more I acted weary, the more convinced he became that I was ready to leave. One evening, Tom sat across from Anna. raising his voice. "The moment we sell this house, we'll finally be free of living with your mother. I swear, our lives will be 10 times better." I stepped into the room, holding a teacup with trembling hands, intentionally spilling some onto the floor. Tom shot me a look of pure disdain, while Anna sighed heavily. What they didn't know was that inside my coat pocket, a small recorder was running, capturing every word. In the days that followed, I continued collecting evidence. His insults, his threats, every word was carefully preserved. Then one afternoon, when Tom brought a broker over to view the house, I greeted them with a calm smile. I pulled out the original contract and pointed to the clause requiring my signature. The broker's face immediately hardened. Tom froze, his face flushing red. "How can this be?" "The papers are all under Anna's name," he shouted. I only smiled and replied softly, "Names on paper are just formality, Tom. The original contract, that's the real chain. Without my consent, no one can sell this house." Tom slammed his hand on the table and stormed off in fury. But I knew he wouldn't give up, and I was right. A few days later, he tried another approach, pressuring Anna to persuade me. My poor daughter came to me, trembling, her voice pleading, "Mother, please, if we can sell this house, Tom and I will finally have a future. Help us, just this once." My heart ached, but I kept my tone steady. "Anna, do you remember who raised you? Who built this house from nothing? If you let Tom take it away, you will lose far more than you realize." My daughter burst into tears. For the first time, I saw true doubt in her eyes. Meanwhile, Tom grew more irritable by the day, lashing out even at Anna. I realized then that his greed was the very knife that would cut into his own hand. I took the final step of my plan. I handed all the recordings over to Mr. James. He nodded, assuring me that Tom's threats and coercion were more than enough to take him to court if necessary. That night, I sat alone in my old room, my heart lighter than it had been in years. I knew I was holding the trump card, and in the dark I whispered, "Tom, you underestimated an old woman, but you never knew. An old wolf still has fangs." Tom grew increasingly desperate. He kept pressuring Anna, even raising his voice to threaten her if she failed to convince me. But the more he pushed, the more frightened Anna became. One night, I heard her sobbing in her room, her trembling voice pleading with Tom, "Tom, I can't go against my mother. This house is not a commodity to be traded. I don't want to continue anymore." Tom exploded with rage, shoving a chair to the ground and shouting, "You don't want to? Have you forgotten who gave you this life? I sacrificed everything, and now you dare to betray me?" I stood quietly outside the door, pressing the record button. That was the final piece of evidence. The next morning, I invited Tom and Anna to sit in the living room. Lawyer James was also present. Tom looked uneasy but forced a smile. "Mother, is this really necessary? I only wanted what's best for Anna." I said nothing. Instead, I placed the recorder on the table and pressed play. Tom's voice echoed through the room, his curses, his threats, and his obsession with selling the house. Tom's face turned pale. Anna buried her face in her hands, sobbing. James calmly rested his hand on the table and spoke firmly. "Mr. Tom, with this evidence, Mrs. Margaret could sue you for threats, coercion, and attempted misappropriation of property. If you continue, the consequences will be severe." Tom leapt to his feet, stammered a few words, and stormed out. The door slammed shut, leaving behind a heavy silence. Anna fell to her knees beside me, clutching my hand as tears streamed down her face. "Mother, I'm sorry. I was so blind, letting Tom lead me astray. I never imagined things would come to this." I stroked her hair, my voice softening. "Anna, everyone loses their way at times. What matters is that you've stopped. I forgive you. But remember, true family and love can never be built on greed." From that day on, Tom disappeared from our lives. I later heard he had fallen into debt, tricked by brokers, until he was left with nothing. As for me, I remained in this house, the place where my husband's laughter once lingered, the place that raised Anna into adulthood. The house still stands, a testament that love and patience will always outlast schemes and betrayal. Every afternoon, I sit by the window, watching the golden sunlight spread across the garden. My heart is at peace like never before. I may have lost much, but I kept what mattered most: dignity, a home, and the love Tom could never understand. And I whisper to myself, an old wolf may grow weary, but it never loses its fangs. After Tom left, life in the house gradually returned to peace. In the early days, Anna lived with guilt and shame. She would often sit for hours on the porch, staring at the garden where her father once tended, and then break into tears. I did not blame her, nor did I bring up the past. Instead, I often made her a cup of hot tea, sat by her side, and whispered, "Anna, what matters is not how we fall, but how we rise again. You are still young, and life is long. Don't let a greedy man destroy your faith in love and family." Time slowly healed the wounds. Anna found herself again, threw herself into her work, and became stronger. Once she said to me, "Mother, now I understand. People can steal our money, even our trust, but if I keep a kind heart, no one can ever take that away." I smiled. That was exactly what I had hoped she would learn. As for me, whenever I walked through the rooms and looked at the mementos of my husband, I thought about the lesson we had lived through. In a family, sometimes the wolf in sheep's clothing is not far away. It may even be the one closest to us. But the truth can never stay hidden forever. Greed may bring temporary gains, but in the end, it destroys the very person who harbors it. Tom was the clearest proof of that. If anyone is listening to this story, I only wish to say one thing: cherish what you have, hold on to your values and your faith. Wealth may vanish, houses may change, but love and integrity, those are the foundations that keep a family strong. And so as the evening sun cast its glow over the house, I silently thanked God. Because through the storms, I still had Anna, I still had this home, and above all, I still had a heart that knows how to love, something no greedy soul could ever take away.